I'd like to be optimistic, but my pessimism comes from the fact that, I work, I run a very small little company in London, and all of the best projects that I've worked on, basically all the best projects that I do work on and I'm continuing to work on, I find it really hard to fund them. I find it really hard to sell them, all of that. And the reason I can make a living in podcasting is because I am willing to do corporate podcasts where they have very kind of low stakes KPIs and pay quite well. And if I didn't do that, and then I wouldn't be able to make a living. I wouldn't be able to make a living on the podcast that I'm proud of alone. And we're talking about shows that are relatively successful. Not Call Me Daddy, but that like where we're talking tens, if not more, of thousands of listeners. I couldn't make it work, and that does worry me as like an anecdotal experience. The US market is more mature. I don't dispute that, and I think ad sales are more mature in the US too. But equally, do I believe that these people can? I mean, when you talk about like multiple funding models, it just gets to a point where the act of creation is in and of itself is complicated, and like making good podcasts should be creatively complex and exciting. The act of funding these things is even more complex, even more exciting, more dynamic. If you're having to constantly beg people to go sign up to your Patreon, and then also you're running programmatic adverts, and also you've got a limited subscription series on Supercast, and it's just like all of these things just to kind of scrabble together enough money to make a podcast and try and make it good enough, and then also you have to kind of like take your child to nursery and pay for your supermarket. It's the whole thing is so complicated. And that's why you end up with, some people will make that work, but then you've just got such a huge advantage if you're a production company that gets your budget from Spotify, and you can bring producers in who don't have to worry about like flogging their Patreon or their Supercast subscription. They just do the work that they want to do, the good, complex, interesting work.